The thick, red liquid runs through her hair, staining the pure white of her wedding dress, a dress she had dreamed of wearing since she was a little girl. Every drop that falls is like a slap in the face, a public humiliation broadcast live on the guests' cell phones. The man, her fiancé, the future father of her child, holds the glass pitcher with a frightening firmness, his face a mask of cold fury. He doesn't say a word. His silence is louder than any scream. She, with her head bowed, smells the sweet, cloying scent of grape juice, or perhaps wine, mixing with her silent tears. Her prominent belly witnesses the collapse of her world. Around them, the faces of the guests are a blur of shock, pity, and, for some, poorly disguised pleasure. Cameras pointed, flashes firing. No one intervenes. No one helps her. They are all paralyzed, spectators of her ruin. What could lead a man to do this to the woman carrying his child on what should be the happiest day of their lives? What did she do to deserve such a cruel and theatrical punishment? The answer is locked behind her trembling lips, a secret that, once revealed, will destroy much more than just a wedding. Now, I ask you to click subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the outcome of stories like this. And tell me, from what city or country are you watching this story? It's very important for me to know how far this story is reaching. The smell of damp earth and the white roses that adorned the garden aisle in Charleston, South Carolina, seemed like a sick joke to Claire. Hours earlier, that scent was the promise of a future, the perfume of her happily ever after. Now, it was just the smell of her worst nightmare. As the juice ran down her face and soaked the lace dress that cost a small fortune, all the memories of the last 5 years with Ethan flashed through her mind in a painful whirlwind. She remembered their first date, a simple coffee that stretched for hours. Ethan, with his easy smile and contagious ambition, promised her the world. And, for a time, he delivered. He was a rising real estate agent, closing million-dollar deals and gifting her with Tiffany jewelry and designer handbags. They built an empire together, or rather he built it, and she was the silent partner, the perfect hostess at his business dinners, the woman behind the successful man. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but it was welcomed with a joy that seemed genuine. Ethan bought a bigger house, with a garden that looked like a park, and had already set up the baby's room with the most expensive furniture. Everything seemed perfect, a modern fairy tale. But fairy tales don't have cousins like hers. Her cousin Savannah had always been Claire's shadow. While Claire was quiet and homely, Savannah was the life of the party, loud, bold, and with an envy she barely bothered to hide. Savannah always wanted everything Claire had, and Ethan was no exception. The suspicion started small, a comment here, a lingering glance there. Ethan started spending more and more time helping Savannah with her financial problems, which never seemed to end. The weekend business trips became more frequent. Claire, blinded by love and trust, ignored the signs until she couldn't anymore. One night, while looking for an important document in Ethan's briefcase, she found a hotel receipt. It wasn't from a business trip. It was from a boutique hotel just a few miles from their home. The date coincided with a night he said he'd be working late. With her heart pounding, she did what she never thought she would. She hired a private investigator. The money she had secretly saved, a small emergency fund, was used to uncover the biggest emergency of her life. The report arrived 2 days before the wedding. Photos, videos, irrefutable proof of Ethan and Savannah together, not just once, but multiple times. The betrayal was deep, cutting, but the real stab to the heart was hearing the recording the detective managed to get. In it, Ethan and Savannah were laughing at her naivety. Ethan said the wedding was just a formality to ensure the legitimacy of the child and access to the trust fund Claire's grandfather had left for his first great-grandchild. After the birth, he planned to divorce her and be with Savannah. Their plan was perfect, but they underestimated the woman they were deceiving. Claire didn't cry. The pain was so intense it dried up all her tears. That night, she didn't sleep. She planned. The wedding would happen. The humiliation would not be hers. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, her round belly under the silk pajamas, and made a promise to the child she was carrying. He would never know the weak version of his mother. On the wedding day, she was radiant. No one could have guessed the storm brewing inside her. She walked down the aisle of white roses, the afternoon Charleston sun gilding her hair, and smiled at Ethan, who was waiting for her at the altar. He looked like the perfect groom in his custom-made burgundy suit, a luxury watch gleaming on his wrist. The ceremony began, and when the officiant asked if anyone had anything to say, an expectant silence fell over the guests. It was then that Claire, in a clear and firm voice, said, "I do." She turned to the guests, took a small remote control from inside her bouquet, and pressed a button. On the two large screens that Ethan had insisted on installing to display photos of the couple, the image changed. Instead of smiles and hugs, what appeared was the detective's recording. Ethan's voice, sharp and cruel, echoed through the garden, talking about the trust fund, about how naive Claire was, about his plans with Savannah, who was as pale as a ghost among the bridesmaids. The silence turned into a shocked murmur. Ethan, caught off guard, turned white, then red with rage. It was in that moment of uncontrolled fury that he grabbed the juice pitcher from the beverage table and poured it over Claire's head, in a desperate act to silence her, to divert attention from his own rottenness. But he only managed to prove her point. He was exactly the monster the recording showed. As the liquid dripped, Claire did not lower her head. She stared at him, her eyes burning with a strength he never knew she possessed. The humiliation he tried to impose on her bounced back and hit him with full force. The cell phones that were once filming the bride were now filming the abusive groom, the exposed traitor. The scene he created did not destroy her. On the contrary, it freed her. She was no longer the silent victim. She was the woman who had taken back control of her life, even if it meant destroying the perfect scenery she had built. What would you do in her place? Would you have had the same courage to expose everything in front of everyone? Leave your opinion in the comments. I really want to know what you think. With chaos ensuing, Claire simply turned and began to walk back down the aisle, leaving behind Ethan, the stunned guests, and the wreckage of a life that was no longer hers. Her father, a man of few words but fierce loyalty, ran to her side, took off his own jacket and covered her, shielding her from the stares and cameras. He didn't ask questions, just hugged her and guided her away from there. In the days that followed, the story exploded. The videos went viral. Ethan lost his job, his reputation, and the respect of everyone. Savannah disappeared, too humiliated to face her family. Claire, on the other hand, took refuge. She sold the house, moved to a new city, and focused on what really mattered: her baby. The grandfather's trust fund, which Ethan had coveted so much, was secure. The condition was that the heir be raised in a stable and loving home, something Ethan had proven incapable of providing. The divorce was swift and brutal for him. Claire asked for nothing more than what was rightfully hers by law, ensuring her son would have everything he needed, but more importantly, that he would grow up far from his father's toxicity. Years later, Claire was no longer the woman in the stained dress. She was a strong mother, a successful entrepreneur who had built her own business from scratch, a charming and cozy cafe. Her son, a smart and happy boy named Mason, was the center of her universe. One day, a man walked into her cafe. It was Ethan. He looked older, tired, his arrogance replaced by an air of defeat. He asked for forgiveness, said he had changed, that he wanted to meet his son. Claire listened to him calmly, without anger, without bitterness. She simply said, "You had your chance, Ethan. You threw it away along with that juice. My son doesn't need a father who only shows up when his own life falls apart. He needs stability, and that's something you can never buy." She didn't forgive him, but she didn't hold a grudge either. She freed him from her life, just as she had freed herself from him on that day at the altar. True wealth, she discovered, was not in bank accounts or luxury watches, but in peace of mind and the courage to rise from the worst humiliation. This story shows us that a person's strength is often revealed in the most difficult moments. Have you ever been through a situation where you had to find a strength you didn't know you had? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might inspire others. And if you believe Claire made the right decision by exposing the betrayal in that way, leave an "I agree" in the comments. If you were moved and connected with Claire's journey, I ask you to leave a like on this video, as it helps me understand what kind of story touches your heart. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe now to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our emotional stories. Your subscription is the greatest encouragement for me to continue bringing content made with such care for you. What do you think of Claire's final decision not to let Ethan get close to their son? Was it justice, or should she have given him a second chance? I really want to know your opinion. If you've made it this far, I've left a story that I'm sure you'll like. It's here on the screen. Just click on this video that's appearing for you. See you there. A big hug, and until next time.